Hi everyone, welcome back to the Hormones in Harmony podcast. Today I've got a guest, Jasmine Katatikarn, who is a fertility warrior, which I love. She struggled to have a child for over 6 years. After multiple IUIs and her second IVF, she was told that she had a less than 1% chance of having a baby and to stop trying. However, Jasmine, being the resilient woman that she is, didn't give up. Using her background as an artist, she applied an artist mindset to overcome her roadblocks and design a life that gave her control of her fertility journey and life moving forward. So we're going to be talking about all of these things in more detail today. But as a result, she became pregnant within months of being told that she had a less than 1% chance. And today, Jasmine now has 2 kids, both through IVF. Using her designer point of view and tools, Jasmine shows you how to take control of your fertility journey as well. So Jasmine, welcome to the podcast. And can you start off by giving us a more in-depth version of your story? I bet it could be a 3-hour podcast, but obviously a condensed version, but I want to know more about what you experienced.
I was going to say, how much time do you have? Well, first, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. And to tell you my story, I will try to condense it as much as I can. I grew up in New York, born and raised, and I led a good life. You know, as a child, I was kind of fed the same kind of things that were told, that, you know, to have a good life, you get good grades, you go to school, you know, all the checks, you get married, you have kids. And I was kind of going along that path without honestly even thinking about it. I went to good school, I had a good career, I got married, and then when it came the time to have kids, I still laugh at how naive I was at the time. I had it like all planned out. I even waited a couple of years. Like, I'm like, when I'm 30, I'm going to start trying. By the time I'm 35, I'll have 3 kids, no problem. And then, you know, go on to the next thing. And so I started trying at 30. I still remember that first month went by and I was like, wow, I'm not pregnant. I'm so surprised. And then that first month turned into 3 months and then eventually a year. And I started getting stressed out, as most people do. And I definitely have the mentality where I like to control everything. Like, as I said, I had a certain plan and I was like, what's going on? My plan's not working. So we started seeing doctors about it. And we got all the tests, the preliminary tests that you normally get. And they came back all normal. There was nothing that they could find in either me or my husband. And so at that point they said, well, there's something up, but we don't know. So I was diagnosed as unexplained infertility, which I know is very frustrating from personal experience, because, you know, you want to at least know how to solve whatever's going on, but with unexplained, it can be very frustrating. And we ended up doing multiple IUIs at this one clinic, at the first one, and it did not take. And after a while, at this point, it's probably like a year or 2 years into it, the doctor still doesn't know why it's not working. I'm eating, I'm healthy, I'm exercising, I'm doing like all the things, right? At this point, I was also looking into more of like the Eastern medicine stuff, like the acupuncture and like the Chinese medicine even. And because I just want to know, right? Like, you try everything. And there's a point where he said, well, maybe you guys should try IVF. And at that point, IVF felt really scary to me, but I was like, yes, I am ready. I want to get it done in a way. Like, you want to just, after years, it's like, I just want to get pregnant. And at that point, we actually changed clinics because my father is actually a doctor, and he suggested that, and this is the first I learned about it, but, you know, all clinics are different from one another, like including the labs and everything that has to do so closely with IVF. So he suggested going to a larger kind of institution with kind of more modern labs. So we did, and I was all gung-ho. I thought it was going to work. And we went to this next one, and they also found nothing outwardly wrong with our test. And they said, they were very confident. They're like, oh, this is, at this point, I was probably 33 or 34. They're like, this is going to work, you know, this is going to be fine. And we started doing multiple IUIs again, mainly because of insurance reasons. We had to do it, but still wasn't taking. And we finally started our first IVF. And at that point I said, like, okay, we're doing IVF. It's guaranteed, you know. If you look at the stats, it's not guaranteed, but in your mind, you're like, oh, I'm going into it. This is going to work. And the first IVF cycle, it went like, I was never a big egg reach. I never had that many eggs when I did IVF. So at that point, I probably had like 8 going in. And they retrieved them. I believe like 5 of them, what's the word, fertilized? Mm-hmm. No, yeah. And so the plan was a day 5 fresh transfer. And they called me up around day 3 and they said, okay, it's looking great. They scheduled my appointment for day 5 for the transfer. I was like so excited. And it's my first time going through the whole process. And I still remember that morning, I was literally like out the door to go to get this transfer. And the phone rang and it was a nurse from the clinic. And she said, don't bother coming in. And I remember being I was like, what do you mean? I didn't even think that it was a possibility because they had scheduled and it turned out they're like, we checked this morning and they didn't reach to blastocyst to the point where I could have a transfer. So, and I just was like devastated because I felt like I was cheated. Like I didn't even get the chance for the transfer. Like I went through the whole thing, the retrieval of all the meds, all the appointments, and I didn't even get the chance to transfer. So we met with the doctor the next morning. And the doctor said, okay, well, you have a new diagnosis now. I think the diagnosis is poor egg. That's my daughter.
We have a guest. We have a co-host.
Poor egg quality. And so that was my new diagnosis, is poor egg quality. And of course, my first question was, okay, so what can I do to improve my egg quality? And the doctor, I still remember, she's like, well, you can't. It's not possible. And I was like, I still remember, I was like, that's not a good answer. I was like, there has to be a way. And then she like hesitantly said, well, some people find that acupuncture is a good solution for this, or is a possible solution. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go head first into acupuncture because, you know, as we all go through this, we want to do whatever we think could work, even though we don't know if this is what's so hard about this fertility journey. There's no definite path that says this will definitely get you a child. And I feel like we're all just like trying and getting frustrated and getting let down, but then having to, you know, bring ourselves up again. So her plan was like, okay, we'll do another cycle, an IVF cycle. And so we'll try again, maybe do a little bit different meds, but pretty much the same thing is what they wanted to do. She still thought there was a chance. And I went to the acupuncturist that next morning and we went on, she put me on a very like kind of a detox for 3 months. She's like, okay, let's take a break for 3 months. Let's totally, you know, go on kind of this fertility diet where no sugars, no carbs, no caffeine, like a very clean diet to kind of like cleanse my body out, and then do weekly acupuncture treatments to prepare me for the next one. And that's what we did. So we did that for 3 months, and in itself I learned a lot from doing that with my body and realizing like how much things like sugars and everything affect your body, which I like to this day. I find it really beneficial. So we got to, the 3 months was up. I was all ready to do the second IVF. I was like, I put in all this hard work, right? So I still remember that morning we were actually in the acupuncturer's office doing like the pre-transfer acupuncture, and then we were going to do the post acupuncture treatment. And I was finishing my treatment, and the acupuncturist walked in, and she had this look on her face. And I was like, oh, because obviously it was in the back of my mind at this point as a fear that the same thing could happen. And she had this look on her face, and she just said, they called. It was a no-go. And the same exact thing happened. Like they said, you know, they didn't make it. So we went into, and I still remember walking across the park that morning with my husband, just devastated. Like I had put in all this work. I thought maybe it would, you know, help. And the same exact thing happened. And I felt really emotionally guilty because it's me, you know. I felt like this is not on my husband's like part. This is actually my eggs that are the issue at this point. It's my body, and it's so it's like beyond personal. And I didn't want to be that barrier too, of that guilt of like, am I going to be the reason why my husband doesn't become a father? And I still remember walking across the park, and I was talking to him, and I actually did tell him that, and I was being completely honest. I was just like, if this doesn't work, like I want you to go and like find someone and have a family, because I can't be that person that's your barrier to. I still get emotional thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, he said no. But you know, it's definitely a thing that, you know, the emotions that go on in this journey is so strong, because it runs so deep, and it's not only you, it's the other person. And I will say it's made us stronger to this day as a couple. And it's something that I realize that it's not only me, but it's us together. But I kind of deviate. So the next day we met with the doctor, the same kind of meeting, right? And what I expected this meeting to go at is like the next step. So we tried this twice in the same way, pretty much. So what's the next step that we can try? And that meeting shocked me, because she came in and she said, okay, the same thing happened. And we were like, yeah. And then she said, well, your next step is egg donor or adoption. And she was like very straightforward about it. And I was like, wait. And I like paused. I was like, at that point I was 35. So it's ironic that, you know, I'm sitting here at 35 in a doctor's office after my second failed IVF with no kids, where like in my perfect plan, I was like, I'm supposed to have 3 kids by now. What's going on? And she basically told me that they would not proceed with any more procedures with my own eggs, because it's not a possibility. And I the same way I did the first time, I was like, are you sure there's no possible way that I could try with my own eggs? I feel like I'm still young, I'm healthy. And she said, and then she gave me the stats. She's like, I give you less than 1% chance. And that number just, you know, haunts me to this day. And I was like, less than 1%? And she's like, yes, I give you less than 1%. And she said, honestly, the only way they would continue with me was through an egg donor. And so I left that meeting absolutely devastated. That is the lowest point in this journey. That's at that point 5 years. And that is when it's the lowest point, but it was also like the biggest aha point, which often happens, I feel like, right? Where the lowest, because I could have easily have taken her professional advice, which I respect, but she's also only human, and just proceeded to the egg donor or whatever she suggested at that point. And this is after 5 years of trying. Like, I'm exhausted at this point and emotionally drained. And I remember going to work that morning, and I went straight to work. I don't know why I did, but I went straight to work, and I remember crying on the way to work. And then I was like, I had to pull myself together, because obviously, like, I'm not sharing any of this with anyone. And I remember thinking, so as a profession, I am a lighting artist on feature animated films, which might seem like totally random, of, you know, not related at all to my fertility journey. And that's exactly how I felt about it too. Like, I was like, oh, that's my work life. This is my personal life. They don't like mix, right? And then as I was going into work, I was thinking about how I address obstacles at work as an artist on films. And I was like, you know what? I realized that I address it in a very different way than I've been approaching my own fertility struggles. And it's a very much like a problem solving type of way, in that I always find multiple solutions at work for different things. And when I get hit with an obstacle at work, I'm very quick to pivot and to like talk to people, collaborate. And this is when I was like, you know what, I need to do this here. Why am I not doing this here? Because I think I put too much trust in, like, okay, this doctor said this is exactly what I'm doing, or whatnot. So the next step is I went to one of the things I really value, especially at work and in my artist mindset and the designer thinking, is collaborating and brainstorming with other people to get different perspectives, because especially you are so in it, and it's really hard to step back and see different ways, different solutions. So the next day I met with my acupuncturist again, and she is like someone that I really valued. She already knew my history. She's worked with me. And she also came from a different perspective, which I really liked, because, you know, we have the Western medicine with the doctors, and then you have the other specialty with the acupuncture. And she had so much knowledge as well. And I sat with her and we spoke about it. And she was very much like, you know, I think this is not the end for you. I have and she gave me suggestions of ways to go about it, even to like, she's like, there's this one clinic, I think that might be better for you, and this other doctor and this other protocol. And I listened and I took all the information and I did it. I was like, okay, let's try this other option. And within 3 months of that meeting, I was pregnant. With my own eggs. And what we did was, it was through IVF again with a different clinic, but we did a couple things differently. It was a day 3 transfer, which was one of the biggest things. Like, my eggs were not making it to day 5. So they decided to do a day 3 transfer. And then also they did something that they don't really do that much anymore. It's called cold culture, which is like before the IVF, the month before the IVF, they'll like take, I don't know if I'm gonna explain this correctly, but they take like samples inside. So they create a little environment similar to what it would be like in your own environments, to put the retrieved eggs in. So it feels more familiar. It's not like they're going into a foreign environment. And we did that, and really like within months I was pregnant. And I still think back to that meeting, and what if I decided to stop at that point? Because that would have been honestly probably like the first option that many people would have done, and I considered it too. What if I had just stopped and not kind of applied my work mentality to my fertility journey? So that is what keeps me here, keeps me wanting to share what I learned in my journey, to show people that there are always multiple solutions to anything. You know, it might not be your first choice, but there's always a solution. And I was guilty where I put so much pressure on one thing and thinking that was gonna be like, if I don't get this, you know, I feel like in fertility, it's like, if I don't have this baby, that's it. I'm going to be unhappy the rest of my life. But I realized this through my journey, that that's I don't want to say wrong, but it is, because one, it's not true. And there's so many ways to find solutions. And when you find multiple ways to find solutions, the stress and the anxiety kind of lift from you. And I know it sounds, but like, you'll probably find it, whatever the outcome that you're meant to have will come easily to you. Because like anything, everyone says, right, when like, try to de-stress, like stress isn't good. And of course that's really easy to say to someone, but it's really hard to de-stress. And what I found though, the way that I did it, it actually made it I was able to de-stress after I went through what I did. And because I was able to say, okay, there's multiple solutions. I'm not putting all the pressure on this one thing. So that's
all your eggs in one basket, pun
exactly.
intended.
Yeah.
It's like the people who get told the couple who get told they have infertility, and then they adopt, and then the next year or two they're pregnant naturally.
Yes.
That doesn't always happen sometimes. So yes, positive thinking, meditation, mindset, all of that can work, but you can't kind of out meditate a bad diet or a physiological imbalance. So we need to look at both simultaneously. But I have so many questions for you. First one, because that story was amazing. I was making notes. There's just so much I want to dive deeper into. But am I right, you have 2 kids now?
Yes.
They were both through IVF. Were they twins, or was that another round a few years later?
Yeah. So no. So the first, I have 2 kids, a daughter that's 4 and a son that's 2. And yes, they're both through IVF. And in each case, I did have 2 eggs transferred, but I'd only have one that took. And what happened was, I was so grateful for my daughter, right? And at the same time, I never, at that point, I still never came out with everything I had gone through. And I realized, I had this point of realization where, in the eyes of the outsider, because also during these fertility times, and I can get to, is like, we traveled like crazy, because that was like my outlet to, emotional outlet to keep on going. So for those 6 years, we were like everywhere. We, like, if you looked at us, and I had friends that would still be like, oh my God, your life is amazing. Look at all the places you're going. And little did they know that in the background, I was like, what was going on all those years. And then I realized, so then we had a baby, and then I started showing, pictures of my baby. And there, I think one of my friends said something like, oh God, you have this perfect life. Like, you traveled and now you have this cute baby. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I have totally been like that person that I don't want to be, as I was going through those struggles, right? Like, you see people on social media and they're like, oh, I wish I was that person. But you don't realize they could be going through something really major. And this is when I decided to come out, because I was just like, I don't want to feed into this perfect life and not share that I was actually struggling for all these years. And it was a really painful thing. So I came out with I went on Facebook Live. I still remember my friends like, I can't believe you did that. And it was so empowering, and it was emotionally helped me, because I realized I was keeping so much in. Like, you don't realize this while you're in your journey. And even if you have a child, or whatever the outcome is, you're still keeping it in. Like, the child is not going to cure all the things that happened to you during those years or that time. And by releasing it, it was such an emotional release. I realized there was a lot of trauma still associated with it that I just did not address. I was like, oh, I got pregnant. Okay, moving on, And so that happened. So first I announced, I kind of came out, and what happened from that was, it was really empowering to me personally, but then all these people came out from, kind of sharing their own stories, saying how helpful it was. And I was like, I can really help people with my story, because, you know, people just, it's awareness, and it's knowing that you're not alone, because it's such a lonely journey. And then what happened is, and I had not even chosen to try for a second child, because honestly, I thought I was like so lucky that I was even able to have one. I was like, oh, I'm not.
I'll not push it. I'll just
Yeah,
stick with the
exactly.
one.
Yeah. And I still remember having the discussion with my husband. I was like, should we try? Because at this point, I'm not getting any younger, and age is a thing. And I think I was probably 37 at the time. And they were like, well, if we're going to try, now's the time to try it. And at that point, I was also, had come out, and I was like, should I go and like document the process to everyone, you know, from the beginning? And then I still remember my husband saying, it's like, what if it doesn't work? You're going to like be so, like, you're going to, you know, it's all the things that come with like crying on if it doesn't work. And I was like, yeah, I mean, the chances are it's probably not going to work, but I think it'd be really helpful to people to see the entire IVF process from like beginning to end, with all the emotional stuff too. So we did that. I actually like documented like appointments and all, like every step to like the meds and everything. And ultimately it did, even like the day, I remember I like did the day I found out if I was pregnant or not. But it was successful against all odds, and I have my second child, who's now 2, and I'm forever
So great.
grateful.
And was that documented on like a blog or your Instagram? Is that still available, so if people wanted to go back?
Yeah, it's on, actually did it all on my personal Facebook, on like Facebook Live really, but I have put it all on my website. So it's all there. Yeah, you could see the whole journey there with the videos and the blogs and everything.
And I'll include all the links in the show notes as well for people to refer to. And how did you like feel with all the medications during the IVF? So did you have a negative response? And also during pregnancy, like, was your pregnancies healthy?
Yeah, so during the IVF, the meds were not, I'm trying to think back. I honestly, it wasn't too bad. I will say that, so the first IVF, I did not go through like a clean cleanse or anything. And the second, third, and fourth, I did go through like a cleanse before it. And I will say that the cleanse, like the difference between the two, I think my body reacted a lot better, just because I don't know if it was because of that cleanse, but I think my body felt better anyway because I was cleansing. So I think I prepped my body in a way that the IVF treatments were not as harsh on me. And I also stayed, when I could, only in like, actually, no, you can't stay active. I remember that is the hardest part with the IVF treatment, I have to say, is that especially towards the end, right before retrieval, you feel really big, and then, or like just inside, it's just this, I can't even explain it, but it's like almost a bloated feeling, but you also can't exercise because it's dangerous. So that mentally was very hard for me as well. I will say that pregnancy was like, I love being pregnant. It was a breeze compared to everything you go through in fertility. I still laugh. I said to my husband, I remember for my first pregnancy, I was like, this is so easy. Is this what everyone that doesn't have to go through fertility treatments do? It's just like, I go to one appointment every like couple of weeks or something. And the worst is like a sugar test where you have to like drink a drink. And I still have,
you're not being injected all over the place.
Exactly.
And having hormones pumped into you.
Yeah, I'm so used to like the needles and everything. And so for me, pregnancy was amazing. Luckily I didn't get any morning sickness and everything. And it just felt like, I was just so grateful to be pregnant too. But honestly, if you go through fertility treatments, pregnancy is like a breeze, I think. Especially like for appointments and everything like that. What we're used to, it's a lot more manageable.
They say that as well with relationships. So I do want to touch on how to stay like connected and healthy during fertility struggles. But I've had many clients or people say that the relationship and the things that you go through with your partner during IVF and fertility struggles, it makes you stronger, so that all the regular stuff that you deal with as parents is like a breeze compared. So do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think the biggest thing with IVF, and this is what I'd recommend to anyone going through it, and all this fertility things, is make talk with your partner about it. So it's the two of you. And also, I think the reason why we were so strong through it is because he was with me for almost every step of the way. Like, it's very easy. I mean, of course, there's like some of the morning appointments that I just went to by myself, but I was so grateful that he came with me to a lot of the appointments, even though, physically he doesn't need to be there. But it felt like then we were in it together. Because on the flip side, I've had friends where, the spouse or the partner would only come for, the retreat, the transfer or something, where they need to be there to give their sperm. And there's a lot of resentment that happens with that, right? Because the woman's kind of going through all these appointments by herself, and then the man will, like, I don't want to fit in, but like this, she got upset because he made a big deal about having to come to this one appointment, like to take off time from work. And I saw that, and I was like, oh, it makes such a difference when your partner. So communicate how important it is to have them there and have them be an active part in it. So you are going through this together, because I could see it going the other way too, right? It's just like, it could be really isolating for the woman. But if you do it that way, and just communicate your feelings with one another, because he's having feelings or she's having feelings, whoever your partner is, as well. So if you talk with one another and also go through it together. And I agree that it's this communication that happens in the feeling that you're together in this, no matter what, which will make parenting so much stronger too, because the same relationship happens in parenting. It's all about communicating so you guys are on the same page, but also the patience. Honestly, I think patience with the fertility journey is a big thing that will make you a better parent. I don't want to say a better parent, but for me, I am like completely impatient, and the fertility journey definitely forced me to like be patient, and I've used that as a parent now, which I think that also helps.
And you also learn that you can create a plan, but whether or not that goes to what you envisioned is a whole nother thing. And I experienced the same thing. This is like a first world problem, not on the comparison of what you went through, but I had my summer vacation plan this year. Was going to LA with my friend. We had the flights booked, we had a schedule, and then coronavirus and lockdown hit. So that is just another example. But you can plan for things, but you can't completely be in control of everything all the time. And as a Virgo type A personality, I also really need to work on that.
Yeah, I agree. I also can relate. I had vacation. I'm supposed to go to like Portugal this summer. Not happening.
Nope.
But yeah, I think it's like great to plan. I'm totally not against planning, but it's also great to be able to pivot and have multiple plans going on, so it's not all in one.
And at least when those things do happen, when we get to go on our vacations or we have the child that we've been hoping and planning for, it's so much better. At the end of it, we appreciate things so much more, so that's a silver lining.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Do you have any tips as well for maintaining a healthy, intimate relationship throughout all of this as well? So this would particularly be focused on the people trying to conceive naturally. So maybe they're considering IVF, but they're still trying to conceive, and the sex life has become like a regimented thing, so that every ovulation, that's the only window, and then the rest of the month they don't go near each other.
I can completely relate. And and it definitely it feels, less romantic, right? It's almost like a meeting, it's like, oh, we got this on the schedule.
Google Calendar.
Exactly. And we all do it, right? We're like, oh, this is the time. What I would suggest is make it special. I mean, I know it's gonna be a thing anyway. What I did this once, and I had friends that did this too, where they would like schedule vacations around the time that they knew they would be ovulating. And they could even just be like mini vacations too. Nothing like, it doesn't have to be big, but also like getting outside your normal zone. So if you're on vacation mode, one, you'll probably be more relaxed. You're gonna have more fun. And then like that's one way that you could do it a couple of times, where it's just like you create these little retreats for yourself. And then in that regard, I would also say associate with something that it's all about enjoying, right? So either like, plan something special, like a vacation. And obviously we can't do a vacation every month. You could if you wanted to. But also maybe like associate with something during I guess the question would be like, what's your priority? Do you want to be intimate all through the month, like the whole month, or do you want to make your intimacy during that time less like what's the word, like a chore? Yeah. I mean, it sounds horrible, but it is, right? It's like you're tired, but like, oh, I got to do this. So I like associate with something that you guys really enjoy, like maybe schedule a reservation to your favorite restaurant and make it like, oh, this is so exciting, like, we're gonna do this. Like, so basically, instead of just putting it in as like clean the dishes type of thing, like bulk it with something that you really enjoy doing. And I think that will kind of get more excitement for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea. And communication as well. Make sure that you're both on the same page. And I have a question. So do you feel like you would have gotten pregnant naturally if maybe you started with the cleanse, the diet change, the acupuncture, the different way of thinking, the positivity, bearing in mind that you didn't really have any health conditions, or they didn't really find any imbalances?
I don't know. It's interesting. I think yes, anything's possible. I actually joke now. I'm 40 now, and my OBGYN was asking me about my birth control plan. I'm right, and I said, I don't need a birth control plan. If I get pregnant now, I'll take it. It's like a miracle. I would say, yes. I don't know. The honest answer is I don't know, because but
it was a question. There's not a definitive answer, but some people are like, no, I just know that IVF was my journey, or they wish they would have started things sooner, but you can't change kind of the past.
I think if I had started, I don't know, to be honest with you. Well, I think in my 20s, because egg quality was an issue for me. So I think if I had started in my 20s, probably yes. I believe I could have gotten pregnant naturally. When I did start in my 30s, I did a cleanse and everything afterwards, but I was pretty healthy. Like I ate pretty well, even when I did start in my early 30s. So I'm not quite sure that it would have made a huge difference, but I will entertain that. I think it would have been possible. I think now it's a little bit hard. Even my acupuncture said at my last retrieval, my last IVF, because remember I said I had eight eggs at my peak of IVF. My last one, I had like 4 eggs retrieved. So, you know, my egg count was also going down quite a bit. So I think yes, anything's possible. And I think a lot of it has to do with, not to sound hokey, but I think a lot of it does have to do with mindset too. And there was that point in my fertility journey where I was just like, my mindset was like, I have to do IVF, or like, it's not working for me naturally. I need to find these other solutions. And for me, time was a big thing. Like, as any fertility journey, you're always looking at how much time you have because your age. So I think if I had started younger and time was not an issue for me, I would have definitely tried that before. Yeah.
And how do you know, like for you, I know you can't answer for everyone, like when to accept and not accept a medical diagnosis? Like, you can't get pregnant, you're too old, it's not going to happen. How do you balance like following your intuition, following a medical practitioner, but then not getting caught up in trying to push something that's actually not physiologically going to happen?
Yeah. I think that's actually a great way that I apply my designer mindset, the artist mindset to it, because what I do is, because I trust other people's opinions, right, and the other perspectives, but what I would do is, and what I do now for a lot of important decisions, is I gather multiple opinions, multiple points of view. So instead of, for example, if I go back in time and I'm in that meeting and that one doctor says you have less than 1% chance, I was like, okay, I respect that opinion. Let me go take that opinion, put it into my pile of opinions in a way, and now I'm going to go to my acupuncturist and I'm going to get her opinion on it, put that in the pile. I went to that other doctor from the other clinic and he gave me a different, his perspective. And what I would do is, and then also put in my own intuition, right? How I'm feeling. Because honestly, when the doctor told me I had less than 1% chance, I knew it didn't feel right to me. Like, I've had experiences before where someone tells me something I don't want to hear, but I kind of accept it because I'm like, okay. But that one felt a little off to me. So you trust you put your own intuition in there too. But you look at all these perspectives. You step back and you look at all, like, get as many opinions as possible, as many multiple perspectives too, like not only Western medicine, get Eastern medicine, get, and then you look at it. And honestly, if you see in all these different perspectives a very common thing where it's like they're all saying maybe it's not possible, then that's the point where I would encourage someone to say, okay, so this is the obstacle. Let's now take all of this and find another option for me. Is how I would do it. Yeah. Because,
and I'm sure you've mentioned this at multiple points, but I just want to know, and for you to outline your 4-step approach to taking control of your fertility journey.
Yeah, so my 4-step approach, which I did personally, and it helped me so much, and I know it's going to help so many out there, is the first step is, 1, getting to know yourself. Because I feel like when we go into this, we get so lost and we get so lonely, and our mind is all of a sudden so focused on this baby, but we don't stop to get to know what we really want, what our values are. And in all honesty, even if you have the baby, it might not solve a lot of it might not make you happy, to be honest with you, because you're not sure of yourself. So the first step is to step back and get to know yourself, get to know your values, get to know what you want. And it's very unique to you, right? What you want to be happy and fulfilled, to make sure you're going in the right direction. The second step is to kind of reframe what you're trying to do. So the example of this is, a lot of people are focused on, like, if you ask what the problem is or what they're trying to achieve. They say, I'm trying to get pregnant. And that's like their sole purpose. Like, how do I get pregnant? How do I get pregnant? But if you step back and you reframe that, well, what will getting pregnant do for you? Be like, oh, it will allow me to have a child. Well, what will allowing you to have a child do for you? And then that's when you step back and you realize it's like, oh, it allows me to nurture, allows me to, leave a legacy or something like that. And then you realize that one, the real reasons why you might want to have a child, but two, it also makes you realize that there are multiple ways to achieve that same feeling. So while, yes, you actively continue trying to have a child, you can also actively fulfill that need in other ways too, which is really empowering. And then like the third step would be the brainstorming, kind of what I'm saying, collaborating, getting different perspectives from people to find solutions to whatever obstacle that you're going through. And then the last step is taking action, because nothing happens without taking action. So after, the first 3 steps, you have kind of not only one solution, but multiple solutions. And this is where I really say, because I think people are afraid, and I was afraid too, of even entertaining the idea of not having a child, right? Because it's like, I can't even think about it, because if I think about it, I'm going to jinx it, or, and what this process allows you to do is to actively keep trying to have that child, but also give yourself alternative ways of fulfilling yourself as well. So you no longer have all this pressure on this one thing. And it's kind of like that. It's kind of like what you said, a couple that adopts and then gets pregnant naturally, because honestly, like probably a lot of the stress and pressure from getting pregnant is gone. And what this process does is kind of relieves a lot of that stress and pressure on that one thing. So I do believe it helps people kind of get what they want in a more natural way.
Do you have any other like stress management mindset tips? I guess the acupuncture helps and the reframing that you did, but did you do any like meditation, breathing exercises, yoga, anything like that?
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to get into meditation, actually. My mind is like a little too crazy, but I tried all of that. I feel like I tried everything. And during that journey, I feel like if someone told me to hop on one foot and that would help me, I would have done that too. I did acupuncture, and I felt like that helped me a lot, just kind of slow down. And I know like there are lots of benefits with acupuncture, but personally, just emotionally, it allowed me to slow down and almost meditate. I mean, it did force me to meditate, right? So it was the one time a week where I was like, I can't move. So that was really helpful. And then for stress management, I actually use this time, and I encourage everyone to do this, as an opportunity to invest in myself, where I was like, okay, what do I love doing? What will make me happy? And, that's how we came to traveling a lot. And even, it's expensive. I still remember after one of the failed procedures, there's so many, the next thing I just turned to my husband. I was like, where are we going? Because I needed like some outlet to make me happy. And this also like translated into, I took like woodworking classes. I made a stool. I learned how to blow glass. I took like some cooking classes. I gave myself permission in ways where I probably wouldn't have done before, to be like, no, I'm gonna kind of stimulate my mind in other ways. So and it felt good because I felt like I was investing in myself, because you can never go wrong in investing in, your education or your travel or anything like that. So that really helped me with stress release. That was another big thing. And yoga, I did do yoga, and it's the same thing with, and I still do yoga to this day. And I agree, exercise is a huge thing when you're not actively in the IVF. It's any kind of activity you can do will be so helpful for your mind and your body.
And it has to be something that you love and enjoy, otherwise that's going to be like another stress, another thing on your to-do list. So if it's a
Exactly.
dance class, if it's swimming, just find something that you're going to do and you actually enjoy doing and don't
Mhm.
dread doing
Yes.
every week.
Yes.
Is there anything else, Jasmine, that you wanted to touch on? Any further tips that you have? Feel like we've covered a lot of different ground. I feel like I know you very intimately after this conversation. But I think it's going to be so helpful for a lot of women listening. But is there anything that you want to add to the conversation?
Um,
Or any
I think,
parting words?
parting words would be to be your best advocate, own advocate, right? Because no one knows yourself better than you. And honestly, no one's going to care about you more than yourself. So while, I think in the very beginning of my journey, I put too much, like someone would tell me, like someone in a professional position, like a doctor or something, would tell me something, and I'd just say, okay, and I would do it and not question it, which, in many cases that's fine. But I think if you're not aware, if you're not doing your own research, if you're not, kind of pulling the different opinions, like I said, then you might find yourself a little bit lost. So just be your best own advocate and follow your intuition when it comes to these things, because you never know. And I guess that's my parting words. Yeah. And
I'm sure there's people listening as well who probably aren't. People just listen to every episode, whether they like relate to it or not. Maybe it will come in useful in the future to have this information. So if you're that type of person listening, like I think it's great that you're educating yourself and not waiting until you're hit with that diagnosis and like, oh my God, I knew nothing about this. What do I
yes.
do? You know that it is a problem, and I tried to do the same as well. Instead of just pretending that I have this perfect health and perfect life, even as a nutritional therapist, people think that I don't struggle with anything, and I try and kind of not do that on social media. I talk about my struggles, and when my skin flares up, I take pictures and show it online. And some people are like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, this is gonna drive people away. Like, why would someone want to work with you when you're struggling with health issues?" And I actually find the opposite. People are more attracted and drawn to that when they know that you're being truthful, you're being honest, and it actually makes them feel more calm and more open to sharing their struggles as well. So I think you're doing the same thing. And yeah, I know it's scary and it's can be a difficult thing to do, but it's obviously paid off, and you're going to be helping a ton of people who's reading the old material that you made all those years ago. So I want to thank you for your time today. I do want to finish up with just a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is, let's see, is there something that you're into lately? So are you doing any like weird and wonderful hobbies like you were previously, or is there anything else that you're related to?
Interesting. Well, now that it's quarantine, we've been quarantined for a couple of months now. I think no woodworking classes. I wish I could. I have been looking into painting classes, but I haven't done that yet. I've been doodling. So you can see this on my Instagram actually. And this has come up recently, where at first I just did for fun because I needed to clear my mind, but I've been doodling on photos. I also like taking photographs. So I've been doodling on my photos, and it's been really fun. And my daughter's even joined in. And the reason why if you look at my Instagram, there's always so many hearts on my doodles, is because she always comes in, she's like, "You need more hearts. Where are the hearts?" So the hearts are for her. And she actually will like collaborate with me, and she's like, "Can I fill in the hearts?" So I'll like give her my thing, and then she'll fill it in. So that has been a more recent hobby and activity that I've been loving.
And this isn't on my list, but I'm intrigued from when you said at the beginning you work in films. I don't know if you're still in that job. Are there any films that we know of that you've worked on?
Yeah, so I work for Blue Sky Animation as a senior lighting designer or artist, and I've worked on the Ice Age movies, all those Ice Age, Ferdinand, the Peanuts movie, Spies in Disguise that just came out. The Rio movies. So if you have kids, you probably know all of that.
Even I know some of those.
Yeah.
That's cool. Is there one book or resource on the subject of infertility or IVF that it could be related to like personal development, mindset as well? Either a website, a podcast, book that you want to suggest?
That's interesting. I feel like I should have something like that. I mean, I will say that there are what helps is to hear other people's stories so that you're not going through it by yourself, and you know that you're not alone. So what I would suggest, I don't have a specific one, but there are, I think Infertile Stories is a podcast that it's just women telling their stories. But there's also, what's really helpful are these forums that you can find on Facebook groups, where there's a lot of them, and pick the one that is right for you. Like there's some of them are very specific. They're like, over 35 for this certain diagnosis, So, but it's a great way to find community in this lonely time. And in addition, I also have a free training that I give out to people that are interested, that go over like the 4 misconceptions during your fertility journey, and then also gives you more in-depth information about the design thinking process of how to approach your fertility. And not only your fertility, really, I apply it to everyday life as well. But those are like the main things. Find community. And it's a huge thing to know that you're not alone in this, because you're not alone.
Agreed. And then very last question is, again, where can people find more from you online? So Instagram, website, tell us a bit more, and I'll include the links in the show notes, like I said. Exactly.
Instagram and the training is probably the biggest thing, I would say. It's free. Take a look at it, and I hope it helps you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for your time.
Yeah, thank you.